Welcome to SewVeryEasy. My name is Laura, and I absolutely love polka dots. I have polka dots in a quilt here, and I have polka dots in a quilt there. I love polka dots. There's just something fun about them. And when I came across this fabric bundle from Timeless Treasures, I had to have it. The fabric is so true to color. It's primary colors with a beautiful white, and I absolutely loved it. The white does have a black polka dot on it, and I'm going to use that one separately because I want this quilt to have high contrast. And the background fabric that I've chosen is a pin dot, and it is white on white, so the whole quilt will be full of polka dots. I'll put a link in the description for you so you can see the fabric line that I'm talking about. Now the quilt itself is going to be a very easy quilt to make, and it's going to turn into a crib size quilt. So if you buy the bundle of the 12 different fat quarters, you're going to have lots. The only additional fabric you're going to need is the 1.5 yards for the background fabric. If you decide you do not want to buy the fat quarters, you can still make this quilt. And what you're going to need is 11 different colors, and you're going to need one 4-inch strip of those 11 different colors. From either the fat quarters or the 4-inch strip, you are going to need to cut 8 4-inch blocks and 8 2-inch blocks of each color. So that gives us 88 of the 4-inch, 88 of the 2-inch, which means we're going to need 88 4-inch blocks of the background fabric. What's really nice about this quilt is you don't have to piece any points, so there's no chance of cutting points off. In the description, I'll put the fabric size and how much you're going to need. But the first thing we're going to do after we have all of this cut out, we are going to need to take all of these 2-inch blocks to the iron, because we are going to iron them in half on the diagonal so that they make little triangles. After that, put your iron away. You're not going to need it. Let's get these little squares ironed into triangles so we can get going. So we've taken all the little 2-inch squares, we folded them in half, and we have pressed them. So all of the little triangles are ready to go. So the block is going to start off with 4 patches. Then you will take the little corner triangles, and they are going to get sewn in these corners. And that's going to make the bow tie. Let me show you how to chain piece these so you can get them all sewn at one time. So with each colored block, you are going to need the color block to match. And with the edge that is opened, you're going to place it on one end. Then you will take the next block, which will be your white one, and you make sure your right sides are together, and this is going to get placed on here. And you are going to sew 1/4 inch down this seam, and you need to do this with every block. Now you have to make sure that you don't sew this line, because then the block is a little hard to put together. So you're just going to sew each one like this. Now you could pin them and stack them all together, or you can just bring them to the machine. I'm going to bring them to the machine. So let me show you how easy it is to piece these without pinning them. You're going to take your first block and get its coordinating triangle. And the raw edges are going to go along this edge. And you will just be able to place it on that corner. So you know that that triangle is always going to be pointing in that direction. The next piece you're going to get is your background fabric. Make sure that you have the right sides together and just gently place it on top. Then you're able to put your needle down, and without pushing or pulling, sew 1/4 inch along this line. Now go off the fabric by 1 stitch. Now you're going to repeat it. You're not going to cut the square off, but you're going to repeat this. You're going to start with your square. You're going to get your triangle so the point is in that corner. Place it on. Make sure your white background is right sides down, so both of the right sides are touching here. Square it up. Lift up your foot ever so slightly so that you're able to take this entire square and have it butt against the needle. Now you don't need to have it folded against the needle, you just need it to touch the needle. And when you start sewing, it's going to sew on the new block. It's not going to sew on the old block because the old block has already gone past the needle. Do not push or pull, let the machine take it in on its own. Go 1 stitch or 2 stitches off of the last square and you're going to do it again. And just make sure that it's still following the 1/4 inch and do the next block. Now the key is not to push or pull this. Let the machine feet and the machine foot do its job. Now if your machine has a feature where when you stop the foot comes up, that's a nice feature to have. I'm going to do all of these blocks without stopping, or until I run out of bobbin. Now you can see the pile here. These have all been sewn together and they're all attached. So all you need to do is snip between the blocks, keep them in order, and make a stack. So all of the colors will remain in the same pile. So I have all of them sewn together. All the seams are in the same area and all the little folded triangles are in the same area. Now we need to do the next row of stitching. Take 2 from the top of the pile and they will be matching in color. You will open the first one up and you will notice you will have a loose triangle here. Take that triangle and just move it to that side. And just with your finger, just press that seam. And you need to do the same thing for this block. You're going to have the loose triangle, fold it over, and just with your finger, you're going to press the seam. Now the seam, the white will go towards the color because that's where the bulk is and that's where it's going to want to go. So the next thing you need to do is just put these 2 together. Now you are going to have those seams match and they'll nestle together. So when those 2 centers are together, you can put a pin. So what you're going to do is you're going to sew these little triangles down now. So you should have 1 triangle on each side. Match up your corners and sew down. And do this to the whole pile. So I'm at the machine and I know I have a triangle here that I'm going to sew down. I'm going to match up the seam. Put the needle down and start sewing. So you will have 1 seam going in this direction and you'll have 1 seam going in that direction. So you will just need to make sure that as you're sewing that this doesn't flip open. Make sure that this triangle is down here. Make sure that the edges match. And again, you're going to sew right off of this corner by 1 or 2 stitches. So for the next one, you're going to want the orange triangle onto the background. And when you put them together, they'll nestle together. And as long as you have your edges matched up, you're able to go sew. Then when you finish the whole row, you'll have a nice stack behind you again. Just take a snip between each block and make another stack. So we have the whole stack sewn together again. And when you open them up, you will see that that intersection will match perfectly. You will notice that you have quite a bit of fabric here. And when you open it up, it's kind of hard to make a decision which direction you're going to go with the seam. So if you pull the seam to the white and just give a little tug, the intersection is going to open up. And if not, you just need to give a little scratch with the nail and the threads will come apart, so it will lay nice and flat. Now at this point you can press them all flat. Be sure you don't iron them and stretch them because we don't want to have to trim them. So just iron the seam going towards the white and open up the center. Okay, all of the bow tie blocks are done. I just need to join them together. And here's the best part. You can decide how you're going to put them together your own way. The quilt will be 6 blocks across and 7 blocks down, and you will end up with 2 blocks left over. And that kind of gives you a chance to rearrange things just the right way for your liking. So let's get some up on the design board and see what it's going to look like. Now here is one layout, and all the bow ties are going in the same direction. Now let me turn it so the bow ties are going in every other direction. So I've taken every other block and I have turned it. So now what's happened is it forms a circle. So here's another option. We have all the blocks going in this direction in this row, and in this row they're going in this direction. So every other row is changing and it's giving this sort of swirl pattern. There's more than one way to lay out this quilt. And another one. And another one. I bet you'll spend more time laying out this quilt in a different pattern many times than you do sewing the whole quilt, because after all, how cute and fun is this? So like I said, the hardest part is going to be deciding how to sew them together. But this is the way I'm going to do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew them in rows and then sew each of the rows together. So I'm going to start and I'm going to sew each of them together along, and then I will sew them together in the rows going this way. Now they're going to be very easy to sew together because all of these seams will nestle together just like it did when you sewed that centerpiece. So let's get them sewn together. So there we have it. It is all sewn together. So how cute is this quilt? It has little pockets here and they're adorable little bow ties. And because they're bow ties and polka dots, I'm going to name this Clown's Closet, because after all, every clown needs a closet full of ties. Now if you add a 2-inch border all the way around, this quilt will equal 42 by 49. And a crib size batting is 45 by 60. So it is a good size for a crib size batting. However, you could make this as long as you want and as big as you want. And with the larger you make it, the more possibilities you have with rearranging this pattern. Now this pattern would be very cute in black and orange for Halloween. And how about Christmas? If you were to use it in Christmas fabric, the bow ties would become bows on gifts. Just another idea. Thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe, and as always, come on back and let's see what we're sewing next time in the sewing room. Bye for now.